With the launch of the new Hilux, I think it was only right that we assembled 4 of the foremost Bakkie contenders to see which one was best. I think they've all grown in leaps and bounds over the year as customers demand more refinement and more car-like character from them, and so yeah, here we are.
You know, these 4 vehicles illustrate how far Bakkies have come in the last couple of years as well.
I think this test sort of showed us quite a bit about what these cars are doing off-road as well as, of course, on-road, which is what we're doing, getting here and driving back.
You know, it's a Bakkie segment, but still image comes into it very much, how the vehicles look. And it probably depends on what the buyer is actually going to be using that vehicle for. You can maybe do with a bit of a vehicle that looks maybe a little bit dated perhaps, but if it's going to be used for the purpose that it's built for, then it's going to suit them just fine.
I think this whole segment is centered around an impression of toughness and ruggedness, and in that sense, the Ranger is probably the one to go for. You know, if you want a Bakkie that's going to project this kind of image. The Hilux, obviously, that's going to spark quite a bit of controversy with that strange-looking sort of underbite, but you've got to give them kudos for being daring enough to shake up the recipe a bit. Amarok's still quite a handsome truck. It's quite muscular, very clean, very inoffensive. It wouldn't look out of place parked in Melrose Arch, for example. The Isuzu KB, fairly pleasant looking, but I think it sort of lacks that butch factor that the others have.
It's a segment where brand loyalty does play a big part. So the Toyota Hilux is going to be the kind of car that a Hilux buyer or someone who's always been a Hilux buyer is going to go and buy. The range is quite out there, especially in this orange paint job. But for me, the Amarok just does it. I think it's a very clean looking car, simple lines. It's very uncluttered, and I quite like the visual tweaks with the LED headlights.
I think the Isuzu is still a decent enough looking vehicle, but it is, I think, the older one of the 4 here. And it does start to feel a little agricultural in this company. I think a lot of these cars, or all 3 of these other cars, are now they're started to be designed to be more comfortable on-road as well as capable off-road, where I think the Isuzu is still, from that generation of Bakkies, it's still a Bakkie. It'll do incredibly well off-road. But in terms of the refinement levels, I think it is lagging behind a little bit. I'm sure we'll see the next model from Isuzu make improvements in that regard.
Also a big surprise was the new Hilux. It probably feels more car-like, just in terms of seating position. It's like you're in a Corolla. You know, the dash has a very clear, simplistic layout.
And the Ford Ranger does provide that feeling that you are in a car-like vehicle. The quality of the interior is very, very good.
The Hilux and the Ranger definitely come close in that department. Possibly with the Hilux just taking it. I think it feels very much like a car, as does the Ranger, but at the end of the day the Hilux is better. It's very refined, it's quiet, it's got a fantastic driving position.
The Ranger though was quite impressive. I think it's actually a cut above the Amarok in my opinion, just in terms of the way it's all assembled and the general feeling that you get from behind the wheel. I think in terms of the smoothness and refinement of the powertrain though, the Hilux takes that one. This new 2.8 litre 4-cylinder diesel engine is very quiet, really smooth.
The drivetrain package has to be the Toyota. It's a wonderful manual gearbox, and the engine is super smooth. It's very well insulated inside the cabin. You don't really hear the engine that bad. You can barely tell that it's a diesel. It's got enough power, it's got enough torque. So from a drivetrain point of view, Toyota.
The Amarok, still good, especially with that 8-speed automatic. The ride quality though is a bit on the hard side for me.
Again, I think the Toyota strikes the best balance. The gearbox and engine combination is great, and the engine is hugely refined, especially at idle. Inside the vehicle you can hardly hear the engine. The Ranger also comes very close, but I just think the Toyota's engine is the most modern and it's definitely the most refined.
I think any Bakkie that's worth its weight in biltong needs to be good off-road, and it's quite assuring that even though these cars do offer good levels of on-road comfort, they can still handle the rough stuff with ease.
In terms of its off-road performance, I would probably go with, I think I'll stick with the Ford Ranger. Yeah, I was impressed. It's the first time I've actually taken it off-road. And yeah, it lines up very, very well. It's very competitive with the competitors.
I think all four of the cars we have here are very capable off-road. The most capable, I would say, is probably the Ranger, very slightly in the lead.
I think my vote is going to go with the Ford Ranger here. I think the Ford handles this off-road stuff a little bit better. The Toyota Hilux is, of course, a vastly improved car, and that, I think it's going to be neck and neck between those two cars. But if it were my money for the off-road stuff as well as for the on-road stuff, I think I'd take the Ranger.
The KB would probably make the most sense for buyers out in the farms and agricultural sort of work, you know, because it seems the most durable.
But I think what the buyers in this segment are going to look for is something that looks pretty macho and pretty mean, and I think the Ranger, again, for me, has sort of noses ahead there.
If I were to buy the car purely on how it drives and how it performs off-road, it would definitely be the Ranger. It's comfortable, it's great on-road and off-road, and I think as a package, it's a really good value for money proposition.
Well, as you saw, my off-road skills today weren't so great, so I think I'll probably stick with the Ford Ranger.
Objectively, the Ranger is the pick of the bunch here. At 560,000 Rand thereabout for this wild track, it's good value because it comes loaded with everything. But if it were my money and I were buying, I'd go with the Hilux. It just seems to gel with me, and of course it's got the cachet of that Hilux brand. You know? And I think in 10 years' time, I'd definitely want to be sitting with the Hilux rather than the Ranger.
I think the Toyota is going to be on top of the game because Toyota has such a great reputation in this country, and potentially 5 years down the line the Toyota is going to be the more reliable car. But if it was my money and I was planning on keeping it for 3 years and maybe then getting something different, it would be the Ranger.
Yeah.